Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
The woman that the altercation that you had grabbed, were you in a physical relationship with her?
Never.
Yes, I will find out.
I'm not attracted to any woman.
Liz, I don't care. This conversation's over.
So he re-asks the question. She re-answers the question. Then he says the conversation's over.
Go sleep it off. If you want a chance in hell.
I don't need a chance in hell.
So tactic, marriage dangling tactic. I don't know. It's not a great. Anyway, it's that tactic where if you want a chance in hell to marry me, you better shape up. It's that tactic.
I'm already guaranteed a one-way ticket toward hell, Ed. I'm over it.
Okay, I don't know. I'm just terrified that we're just seeing one of their cycles, one of their moments where they do this. They've done it many times, and they'll do it many times in the future. I'm personally worried about that. As a therapist, I would have a little bit of that, but I would also feel at least like I had some ability to affect the long term, which would give me some comfort. But since I don't have that, I'm only stuck with that feeling of worry and dread that not only that this will continue, but even if Liz does break up and doesn't get enough recovery and healing and therapy and self-awareness, that it'll happen again to her. And so I guess I'm mainly worried about her.
Everybody told me if you stay with her, you're gonna be miserable for the rest of your life. This is all of my decision. This is all of my choice. This is what I give up. I gave up my daughter, my mom, Rich, and I can't have any of my friends. I can't have any of my girlfriends. I'm not allowed.
Okay, I mean, so who knows what's really happening, but I will hypothesize that that isn't exactly true and that he is trying to get out ahead of the criticism from either her, Liz, or the public when he's reflecting on the things that she revealed, that she said that she isn't allowed to have friends, that she can't stay out past 11 without his permission. And so he's saying, well, she doesn't let me have my friends and that sort of thing. I mean, is that it's possible that she might get jealous, but maybe we saw a little bit of that with her other friend, but certainly it doesn't we haven't seen evidence that that is a strong part of their relationship and that he truly cannot have relationships with other people.
Sit down. My friend Apudova.
I never even heard of her.
I can't even. You told me I'm not allowed to.
I never even heard of her. No, you don't want me to have friends.
I can't have Grace, my friend, with her daughter, because Liz is jealous.
I never said that.
I'm not allowed to have girlfriends.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Oh yeah, you are. All of my friends are women. I'm not going to apologize for that.
So, I don't know. They're just having an argument where they're in that zone that I will identify. And I learned this early in my career, that there's a threshold upon which couples will cross where they're just trying to win and they're not listening to each other. They're not actually working things out. They might turn it around. There might be some benefit to having these kinds of conversations, some venting or some illumination. You might learn like, oh, I didn't know that. But usually the two individuals are completely shut off to the other person. There's almost nothing you can say that the other person will listen and understand and hear. So I think they're just kind of in that zone.
Friends are men, and you don't like that.
No, they're not. Most of them are gay women. Most of them.
Am I gay?
I don't know.
Am I gay?
At this point, Liz, I do not know.
What? Now, I mean, I'll hold out for the possibility that somehow Ed has something to go off of when he says that sort of thing. But she said she's not. And why would you think that? Like, it's weird. Now, if he has a reason, like, well, these 5 reasons, I think you're a closeted bisexual person. I don't know why they're not saying bisexual, because if she's truly gay, then what is going on in their relationship? But, that happens sometimes, obviously. So, yeah. But if we're looking at this from the assumption that there's no data that he's basing this off of, and that there's it is what it is in terms of the way it looks, then this could be, I don't know, a tactic to keep her into that zone of trying to please, trying to prove, trying to demonstrate, no, I'm not gay, putting her on the defensive, that kind of thing. And or he, due to his relational traumas, is paranoid and distorted to the fact where even though he's had all this data to show otherwise, he's so sure, or there's these huge questions hanging over him that are based on his emotions and not based on what he knows to be true.
I think you are bisexual. There's been too many coincidences with you.
Too many coincidences.
You told me that you would be with a woman. You told me that.
I never said that.
Yes, you did.
I never, ever said that.
Okay, so now we're hearing from her that she never said what he said she said. But who knows? Maybe she did, but it was not something she was meaning to be serious, right? It was in the way that I was saying earlier, which is that she was saying something like, look, you are so frustrating, and tell you the truth, all the men I've dated have been so frustrating. Maybe I should be with women, right? Sometimes people will say that because they're just frustrated. Not to say that they're actually going to act on that or that they want to, but anyway, so we're hearing from him a little bit more detail that he's basing it on all these coincidences. And I don't know, just imagine someone telling you your sexual orientation based on these very circumstantial pieces of evidence. In fact, some of them might be completely just made up by the individual. Like they just come at you like, I know what your sexual orientation is. Let me tell you. And you're like, let me tell you. Oh boy. It's, yeah.
I said you would make me want to go the other way. I never said that I would get with another woman.
Right. Okay. So she's confirming what I thought was true. Okay. So maybe he'll provide other data points. Now, I will tell you that gaslighting, I'm sure people are pointing at this and saying it's gaslighting. It certainly fits the internet version of gaslighting, which is when someone tells you something that you are and you're like, no, I'm not that. Like an example that people use in common language is you will be sort of quiet and someone comes up to you and says, you're angry at me, or you're angry. And you're like, no, I'm not angry. I'm just being quiet. And the other person is like, no, you're angry. And then the quiet person will be like, you're gaslighting me. And it's like, no, it's not gaslighting. It's just distorted or wrong or something. But in the midst of an abusive relationship, gaslighting can and often does occur. And sometimes people even sort of consciously know, but usually it's subconscious. But either way, it can look like this. I don't know if that's what's happening right now, but the abusive person will use any angle they can to get the victim to question who they are. And they will use all sorts of tactics, one of which would be along these lines of just like, I know who you are. You don't even know who you are. Because imagine if he were to succeed in this effort of saying, I know that you are gay. And then it starts to break her down. And she's like, well, geez, maybe I am. I mean, he is pointing out all these reasons, and I used to be pretty sure that I knew my sexual orientation, but now I don't know. Maybe I don't know a lot of things. Maybe I'm not a good gauge of a lot of things, including who I am or what reality is or what abuse is. I believe that I'm a victim of abuse, but maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm a bad judge of reality. So it could be an effort along those lines. Again, usually gaslighting is done subconsciously, but this style is not usually indicative of subconscious I say subconscious because the individual will be in the process of distorting and abusing, and as a side effect of that, a very horrible side effect, is the victim will start to question their grasp on reality. But you wouldn't just go after someone's... Now, if we were to fit it into that model, it could. I don't know if it does. But my hypothesis is that he literally, in this moment, believes that she probably is gay or bisexual or something, because he has to believe that in order to match what he believes to be true, which is that Liz and this other woman were having a moment together. And he only believes that because he saw something happen and he chose to interpret it subconsciously as such because he's terrified of being rejected. He thinks that abandonment and betrayal and cheating are around every corner. So there's a flow chart eventually, but then he believes, it's like, no, she is gay, she is, because why else would I feel this way about what I thought that I saw? And then over time, so he's acting from a place, he's behaving from a place of authenticity, meaning he's not trying to manipulate her to believe that she doesn't have a grasp on reality. He literally believes this to be true. But when you're in the face of that, when you're being victimized by that, you end up, if you are in it long enough, you start to literally question your grasp on reality, your ability to judge reality, which is gaslighting.
Woman. I don't know where these accusations are coming from because Ed's completely in control. I have a curfew. I don't go out with friends. So I don't know how Ed thinks I cheated on him with a woman.
When you get drunk, you make a fool out of yourself. You try to walk home from a restaurant.
Yeah, so this is another thing that abusive people will do. I don't know if that's what's happening right here, but abusive people, and we've seen multiple examples of this through this conversation, when they are losing an argument, they will pull something else out of the bag. And for Ed, he has like a set of 6 things in his bag. So he eventually has to recycle back to old things. He's already been here several times, and you're always defending. And if you aren't aware of this tactic, you will continually try to defend yourself without zooming out and being like, oh, I see. We're in this. You've now pulled out item number 3 out of your bag. That's interesting. We've already been over this. I'm not going to repeat myself, would be the proper response to that.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Unfortunately, life doesn't come with a user manual. Navigating all the various challenges we face can make you feel unsure or stuck in place. Whether it's a relationship, or going through grief, or considering a new career. And, generally speaking, a therapist can really help with that. By helping you to explore your feelings, and by giving you the space to clarify what you want to do. In my life, I can't imagine where I'd be without the therapy I've had. During some of the biggest moments of my life, therapists have been there for me. To slow me down, to listen to me, to help me explore. Well, that's where BetterHelp comes in. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Kirk. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
In this neighborhood, you're gonna get murdered.
You think that I'm scared?
But how do you think that makes me feel as your fiance? You think I want something to happen to you?
You know what? You don't know what independence is.
I don't want that. I don't want somebody like you. I don't want that.
You don't want someone
I don't want somebody that I have to worry about.
You want someone
that makes poor decisions, and I'm tired of babysitting you.
Oh, I'm so sorry because...
Yeah, it's rough. If you saw this when it was happening, how was it going for you when you were watching this? Let me know in the comments, because, this is rough. This is, especially when you know the history and you know that phone call, this is rough. The put downs, the superiority, the name calling, the tactics, it's just a rapid fire of all these different aspects, and she keeps addressing all of them. But she's also, I think she's easily derailed. And then she's like, wait, so what? Because he starts to say, you're a drunkard and you ran off and you're immature and you're a child. And then she starts to say something about independence or something. And I don't, maybe that they understand what that meant. But then she starts to go into this point of like, you want someone who lacks independence. You want someone to be dependent on you, which is part of my hypothesis for him. I don't know if that's true, but there seems to be an element of that. And I think it's because when you feel insecure, one of the solutions you will find is if you look for someone who absolutely depend on you. Thus, there's at least a big reason why that individual won't leave you and won't betray you. But you need them to stay in that dependent position, because if they become independent, then you're going to lose them. And so if you're not aware of the whole thing and you're an abusive person, you will actually try to keep them down, and will have all these tactics to make sure that that's true, including putting them down verbally. You're immature, you drink too much, all that kind of thing. I mean, all I saw was a woman who detected abuse occurring and yet another jealous, ridiculous notion. And especially if we understand the situation right. I mean, if you're in her shoes, it's such a ridiculous thing, right? She's like, I'm completely straight. Let's just understand that. And he doesn't have any reason to believe I'm gay. Plus, if I was bi, I would tell him. We talk about those sorts of things. But anyway, I'm straight. I had this massive altercation with a coworker, and I suspect that something was going on with that because they're not going into it. They're not going into the specifics. They didn't show it. And of course the cameras were there, right? Because the cameras were there before and after. I guess there's a slight chance the cameras went home, but I have a hard time believing that that's true, especially with this couple. So they must not have shown it. They didn't even show who that person was because they would have been able to say, we have footage of them before, that's that person. So for legal reasons, maybe the woman didn't sign off on a waiver. That would make sense, right? Or it has something to do with, I don't know, who knows. But they're not talking about it at all. It is kind of noticeable. But anyway, so just imagine you're listening. You're just like, first off, I'm straight. Second of all, I had this altercation with a jerk-face ex-coworker that I thought was a friend, but we got into a fight, and so that happened, and that was awful. That ended, and then the first question I get from Ed, all I'm looking for is some support from what happened. He says, what did he say? Like, did I have a relationship with her? What? And I can hear by the tone of your voice that you're jealous and you're angry and you're accusing me of something. That's where you went. When I was being victimized by one of my guests, one of my friends, I was being harmed. You went to this narcissistic place, this self-centered place around this weird paranoid possibility that it was a lover's spat. What are you talking about? I mean, so from her perspective, that's what's happening, and she also knows I know where this is headed because she's been down the road so many times, and she bolts. And now she's being accused of being immature and all the tactics. I'm going to rewind this because it's kind of interesting when you actually watch. If you look at it through this lens, I don't know if that's what's happening, but if it is an abusive, quote unquote, tactic, it's interesting to see the rapid fire techniques just kind of and you can, in my view, it's like she gets derailed by each of them. She's like, okay, she's trying to know how to respond to that. But when he says like, you're a drunk person and you ran off and you're immature and, I love you and how do you think that made me feel? And I'm like, how do you think that made me feel? I was worried about you. And then it seems that she was like, oh, wait, you love me? And then he blasts her. I don't want to be with you. I don't want to marry someone like that. Let's just rewind that.
When you get drunk, you make a fool out of yourself. You try to walk home from a restaurant. In this neighborhood, you're going to get murdered.
Okay, so you're an idiot. That's the message. She's a grown woman. She doesn't understand safety. She understands those things. But anyway, so you were drunk and you were wandering off and you're irresponsible. Okay, that's first tactic that he said already a bunch of times.
You think that I'm scared?
But how do you think that makes me feel?
Then boom, how do you think that makes me feel? So it comes out of nowhere. You're like, okay.
As your fiancé, you think I want something to happen to you?
You know what? You don't know what independence is.
I don't want that.
And then boom, I don't want that. I don't want to be with you. And she's kind of reeling from each step of the way.
I don't want that.
You don't want someone.
I don't want somebody that I have to worry about.
You want someone.
Then I don't want to be with someone I have to worry about. Okay, meaning I think you're a little child that needs a daddy.
That makes poor decisions, and I'm tired of babysitting you.
Oh, I'm so sorry because the whole time that we were separated, you just looked for attention. You took people out on $200 days. You are a sad puppy. You're not that attractive, by the way.
Yikes. So, I mean, look, I understand where Liz is coming from. She's frustrated. She's derailed. She's just been battered around a lot with all these different, what I'm going to call tactics. I don't know if that's true. I don't think that Ed, is Machiavellian. I don't think that he is trying to do the way it looks. I think he is overwhelmed with his emotions. He comes across like he's totally calm and everything's fine, but I don't believe that to be true, especially seeing the pattern with Rose and with Liz. I think he is, of the two of them, if we hooked him up to various different biological and neurological markers, I'm guessing that he would show much higher readings of stress. It's usually the case, honestly. I don't know that, but that doesn't justify it, obviously. But I think he's melting down, and he's just kind of throwing stuff out that sometimes works according to his experience. And so there's that. But then she starts to lay into him, give him a taste of his own medicine, right? And yeah, I get that, but if I were a little therapist on her shoulder, I'd just be like, maybe go home or go to bed or something, wake up in the morning, go to therapy, get some support, make some plans, figure out what you want to do. If you want to work it out with Ed, then go to couple therapy. If you don't, then move out and move on.
Look how you
And I loved you for that.
You're rude.
I'm not
And you're
rude. No, you
unappreciative.
think you walked this
Where's
planet.
the $13,000?
So now tactic number 4 we can identify is you're unappreciative because you're a little child and I've given you so much and you need me. And now he's about to rattle off some sort of money thing. I think let's watch.
The ring I bought you. Where's that at?
Right, so there's that ring, and so now she has to admit that she threw it away into the wilderness or the grass, and I think she knows that he's going to get upset, and that's going to give him ammunition against her. Like, you're an immature person, or you owe me money now. You now, I can hold that over you to control you. I don't know. Yeah, actually, I didn't even think about that. If I were there when she was throwing the ring, I'd be like, you don't want to give him another way to control you. So don't throw it in the grass. Just give it back to him. Just say, here you go. And then you won't have to worry about that tactic being used against you.
Probably in a bush.
Oh, I hope you're kidding.
Why? It's not like you gave about me.
You threw a $13,000 ring in a bush? Are you kidding me?
100%.
That was a $13,000 ring, which means nothing to her. In this moment, I realized this is it. That's the icing on the cake.
Okay, I'll tell you. As a citizen, as a therapist, if they were in my office, well, let me tell you, just so you get an understanding of my job and what I do, the problems that they have are significant, but I've seen much worse and helped couples that were worse than them pull out of the nosedive and improve their relationship and their own emotional health themselves as individuals. It might take many years, but I've done that. So some people might look at them and say like, oh, they're totally irreparable. There's no way a therapist could help with them. That's not true. I've treated way worse couples like that. I'm not always successful in helping the couples to change and keeping them engaged in therapy for sure. But with couples, if a couple like this came to my office and I managed to engage with them and managed to help them and managed to keep them engaged for a long enough time, maybe 4 years, then there would be improvements. I would be optimistic. I would be extremely optimistic about improvements happening because that's my experience. Couple therapy is difficult. It's grueling. It's very countertransferentially provocative to therapists, and it's if both people are willing to try, there's a lot of healing and learning that can happen. So I'll say that. But as a citizen, I have to say there is a part of me that is like, let's just end this so that you both can, Liz in particular, can not have this happen. But of course, and I've said this before, until Liz gets healing and recovers from whatever she's been through, including what she's been through with Ed, then there's always a chance that she'll just enter into another relationship of this sort. Yeah. So I guess either way, regardless of whether or not she stays with him or not, I would just hope that she was able to find a venue, therapy or support or both or something, life journey to be able to heal, to be able to center herself, to find her assertiveness, to find her differentiation, to find who she is, what she deserves, and that she's a good person regardless of whether or not a man approves of her or not.
The ring is a symbol of, our love. And even though she's mad, it's the worst possible thing she could have done. You threw a $13,000 ring in a bush. You are dumb.
I'm dumb.
Wow. I mean, for a second, the pendulum swung a little bit because I didn't realize the ring was that expensive. And yeah, that would suck. And I think people think he's rolling in money, but I don't think that's true. So that would hurt. That would sting. It's like, well, at the very least, let me sell it back. And plus, selling it back, you probably would only be able to sell it back for a fraction of the price. It's not like, whatever you purchased it for, you can't just sell it back to the store at the same price. So I was, a little bit like, oh, yeah, that would be shitty for him on some level. But then he calls her dumb, which is exactly in line with that approach that he has to demean, abuse, belittle, call her names. It's in that vein, which would make sense because when he gets triggered, that's what he resorts to.
You are dumb.
I'm dumb? What am I supposed to do to prove to you?
Use that money to help your grandparents out financially.
So you want me to pawn the ring?
Interesting. So he says, you're dumb because you could have helped your grandparents out financially. Maybe that's something that he knows that she wants to do for her grandparents. And yeah. But then the way that she responds, she's pretty easily derailed. Her defense to him, just there's so many other ways she could have responded. Like, yeah, well, maybe it was a little dumb, but you know what? You have treated me so poorly for so long, including tonight, that I just couldn't stand looking at that thing, and I didn't want to deal with it. And so, yeah, I threw it into the bush. I threw it into the grass, and you know what? That's just how it's going to be. You should, if you want to learn a lesson, this is on you. You should stop treating people like shit, and things like that won't happen. I don't know. Now, in the moment, am I going to be able to be differentiated enough to hold it together, to have brilliant responses? No, I'm far from that. But it's just a little unsatisfying to see her kind of flounder in response to him.
I know that I'm innocent in this, and I'm so sorry that you're insecure. So you want me to leave?
No.
I'm gone tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm gone tomorrow.
Thank you.
But she's able to bring it back to the core of the whole issue, which is he's insecure. She is doing everything she can to convince him otherwise. No, Ed, I'm not gay. And no, I did not have a relationship with that person. We had a fight. That's it. Are we done with this issue? And so she returned it back to the core, because that is the core. He thought she's gay and that she had a relationship with this person, which would have been fine because he thought they had a relationship when they were broken up. So what's the big deal? But she cleared it up and said, no, I'm not gay. I didn't have a relationship with that person. So can we put an end to this? And he's still convinced. You know what, honey? I know you think what your sexual orientation is, and I know you think you know who you had sex with, but I am the one that tells you what your sexual orientation is. I know you're gay.
For the therapy session.
I'm so sorry for your insecurities. It's good.
I'm sorry that you tried to walk home from a restaurant like you always do.
I'm not sorry because I'm a independent person.
Okay, that was interesting. He says, I'm sorry that you tried to walk home from a restaurant like you always do. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if even that behavior, that dynamic had happened before. So I think what he's saying is they've been in fights before at restaurants and she's walked home before by herself to get away from him.
I don't need
Because
security.
you're drunk, you put yourself in harm's way.
You know what, Ed? You thought that I was cheating on you with her.
Go to bed. I'm done. Conversation over.
You're insecure. I'm innocent. I'm completely innocent, and I'm done proving my point.
Okay.
Yeah, good. So she's able to bring it back. You're insecure. I'm innocent. End of story, which I think is true. I mean, I think when he's even calm, he might believe that to be true as well. Because if he did believe that she had been cheating on him or something, I think he would have brought it up when they were having good times.
I'm completely innocent.
Okay, good night.
You're welcome.
All right, well, that does it for that episode in which I react to Happily Ever After 90 Day Fiancé. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.